Welcome to the Big Change the Film interview series. My name is Jason Cohen. I personally have lost over 120 pounds, and my goal is to talk to inspiring individuals weekly who've also lost significant amounts of weight. Including today's guest and myself, the total pounds lost is now up to 8,790 pounds. Today's guest is Mary Chavarria. She's from Tucson, Arizona. Over the last several years, she's lost a total of 230 pounds. She had a slew of health issues. She was a former alcoholic, actually had cancer as well, and kind of has been able to beat all of that, completely transform her life. She told me that she thought she would always be overweight, and it's almost kind of strange for her now being a smaller, skinnier person. She tells me that her mom had to make all of her own clothing when she was a kid because it just simply wasn't available at the store. Also, she was always the biggest kid in her class. She was bullied, and she's been able to overcome all that. She's got an incredible story. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoy it. I'm here with Mary Chavarria. We got connected through Tim Kaufman, and she's got a great story. Has lost 230 pounds. And so, Mary, maybe we could just start off with a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
I was born in Austin, Texas, and moved to the Phoenix area when I was about a year old. So I was raised in Glendale, Arizona. And I now reside in Tucson, Arizona. I moved here, I believe it was 2003.
Okay, great. And do I have that number right? You lost 230 pounds total?
Yes, 230 pounds from my highest weight. Well, I don't actually know my exact highest weight, but the last recorded weight was 394, and I'm really sure that I went on to gain more weight after that. But since scales in the 90s normally didn't go up that high, I don't know exactly.
Sure. Yeah, wow, that's incredible. Congratulations. You wrote to me a few things in a message, and one of those things were that you had actually started to gain weight in third grade. Looking back, is there anything that you can point to, anything that you can attribute that to?
Not really, other than that I come from a large family with many obese people. We were big eaters. There was always a lot of food around, always a lot of snack food. When we were younger, my mom used to buy us each our own carton of ice cream every week so that we wouldn't fight over it. And there was just always snacks and sweets everywhere, and my mother prepared big meals. There were never any leftovers, and I was very sedentary. I hated exercise of any kind, and so I just attributed all those factors coming together for my weight problems.
Wow. And then I think by the time you were in high school, or by the time you were high school graduation, you were 250 pounds. I know for myself and maybe for a lot of people, they understand what it's like to be bigger, especially as a younger person. But what was it like being in high school and being that size for you?
Oh, it was miserable. I was ostracized and bullied throughout my school years. I think even more so in high school as I got older. I had very few friends, and I felt like I was the biggest person in school at that time, which I graduated in 76. So in the 70s, we didn't have as much of the obesity epidemic as we have now. So at that time, 250 pounds was enormous. And so I don't have good memories at all of any of my school years because of the constant bullying.
Wow. And then I think your first diet came when you were 19. Do you remember your motivation back then for doing that?
I just wanted to be able to wear the kind of clothes that everyone else wore. Up until that time, my mother had made the majority of my clothes because I couldn't find anything in the store to fit other than old lady polyester stretch pants. I just wanted to wear nice clothes and look better. So I joined Weight Watchers, and I was able to get about 75 pounds off. But as soon as I went off the diet, of course, it all came back on plus more.
And was that kind of, did that continue through your adult life? Did you continue to go on diets, or was that really your only huge attempt to kind of lose the weight?
Oh, I went on several attempts and lost hundreds of pounds probably over and over throughout the years, only to regain it all. I had 4 children, and after each of my children were born, I put on significantly more weight. And it was just a vicious cycle throughout the years, gain, lose, gain, lose. And it just always seemed like I ended up weighing more each time than I did the time before.
In the message, you mentioned that you got married to the first man who showed interest in you, and you said you had low self-esteem. You thought that no one would ever want you. Can you talk a little bit about how you had arrived at that mindset or that idea?
I think probably just because of the rejection that I had experienced throughout my life, especially from boys during school, just being made fun of and feeling ugly. And this one man showed attention to me or paid attention to me, and I thought, well, I might as well take it. It's, the opportunity is probably not going to present itself again. And even though he was abusive, I went ahead and married him at age 21.
I think you said you had 4 kids. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what was, I think you actually kind of went into it a little bit, but what was your weight doing during that time, having kids, not having kids, having kids, not having kids, and all of that?
Well, although I was dieting on and off all throughout, like I said, I would lose some weight only to regain it. During each of my 4 pregnancies, I had a condition called hyperemesis gravidarum, which is severe nausea and vomiting. So I actually did not gain too much weight during my pregnancies, but I made up for all the food that I missed out while I was pregnant after my children were born. And so I gained significant amounts of weight after each one was born.
Yeah, and I think you said you were addicted to sweets. You would buy bags and bags of chocolate and cartons of ice cream and gorge yourself after everyone would go to bed. Do you, looking back, having hindsight now, do you have any kind of idea or reason why you think that you ate that way at the time, or why why that behavior had become standard everyday life for you?
The only thing I could attribute it to is possibly that as a child, I was given a lot of sweets, and perhaps I equated that with love. And maybe the sweets filled some sort of a void in my life that I felt like I didn't have at the time. And they just, I guess you could say, they made me feel good.
Yeah. And then at some point you end up at in the hospital, I guess, which led you to be on prednisone. And you said, you gained an even bigger appetite, which then, of course, in turn leads to more weight gain. Would you mind talking about that a little bit or telling that story?
Yes, I believe it was, I think it was in 1993, I believe. I was hospitalized for an unknown condition. They still really don't know what happened, but basically they felt like some sort of immune system thing. My immune system was attacking itself, and I had several different symptoms, but I was put on a high dose of prednisone, and that is actually the last time that I was officially weighed and got my exact weight, which was 394. They wheeled in a scale that was used in the hospital to weigh people in wheelchairs. And so after I was discharged from the hospital, I was sent home, still taking the prednisone. And I remember just feeling like I couldn't get enough to eat. And I remember one day eating probably 5 or 6 chili dogs in one sitting. And I just felt like I just could not eat enough to get full. And so I was on that medication for probably close to 2 months. So that's why I think that I probably did get well up over 400 pounds.
Wow. And then at some point you decided to do gastric bypass. I know you lost a bunch of weight, and then some of that weight came back. Can you talk about that process and what kind of happened within there?
Yes. Before the gastric bypass in the 1990s, they had a medication combo called fen-phen that was very effective as an appetite suppressant, and I was prescribed that and was doing very well on it and had lost about 75 pounds, and then they determined that it was unsafe and they took it off the market. And so I started gaining weight again, but before I had gained all my weight, I found out about the gastric bypass. I went to a free seminar and found out that I would qualify for it and that my insurance would cover it. So I went ahead and underwent that surgery in December of 1998. My weigh-in prior to surgery, my last weigh-in was 349 pounds. I lost down to, I believe it was about 205 before I started to regain the weight again.
Wow. And then what did what did that do? Did going through the surgery, losing the weight, did that change your mindset at all? Did that put you in a different place to hopefully put you on a new trajectory to continue to lose weight, or had nothing really changed, to sustain you long term?
Well, initially I thought, this is it. This is the magic bullet. This is the answer. I'm going to lose all my weight and be thin for life. But I realized that, just because my stomach was restricted and I physically couldn't eat as much food as before, my mindset was still the same. I was still a food addict. And so, of course, I found ways to get around that, the fact that I couldn't eat a lot at once. And I believe that's why I started regaining the weight again.
And I think alcohol and cigarettes kind of played a big part in your life. Would you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes, I think initially I was working as a certified nursing assistant, and I was working the evening shift, and my job was pretty stressful. I worked in an Alzheimer's dementia unit, which you can imagine is pretty stressful. I would come home at night, and I started out with just having a glass or two of wine now and then to unwind, and long story short, that turned into a full-blown addiction of alcohol. And I didn't know it at the time, but I found out later that it's actually very common for people who give up one addiction to take on another. It's called cross addiction. And because I think that I could no longer feed my food addiction as I had before, that alcohol became my new food. And so I ended up being an alcoholic for over 10 years. I also smoked at the time. So between the two of them, I think I eventually lost back down to 190 pounds. And with the alcohol and the cigarettes, I think that I was substituting them somewhat for some of the food. So I was able to maintain that weight during the time that I was drinking and smoking. But I stopped smoking in 2010, and I stopped drinking in 2011. And once again, the weight started to creep back on.
Wow. And then what else? I know you kind of had a host of other physical issues going on alongside of what you've already mentioned. Would you mind kind of maybe listing those, talking about those a little bit?
Yes. Well, one thing I have, which another problem, I think, or another reason for maybe my low self-esteem is I have mild Tourette's, and you may have noticed I do a little bit of ticking here and there. So that was a problem with my self-esteem, but I don't know if that's so much of a physical problem. But I suffered from severe arthritis, mainly in my hips and knees. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2014, colon cancer, and had bowel resection surgery, which resulted in chronic digestive issues. I had sleep apnea, was using a CPAP to sleep, and I was also taking sleeping pills. And I had psoriasis for 15 years on both legs, to where it was extremely itchy and painful. I would just scratch myself raw to where my legs were all often bleeding and had big sores on them. I think that's all I can think of right now.
Well, that's certainly plenty. So, not to only talk about the bad, but obviously we're talking today. You've lost 230 pounds. You look great. What changed for you? Did you have a moment where you decided you had enough, or was it a kind of a period of time that happened, or what kind of turned the ship around for you?
Well, it was actually pretty gradual for me. In 2010, my youngest daughter had seen the documentary Food Inc. in her English class in high school. And for the first time, she realized how animals that were being raised for our food were being treated. And it affected her really deeply. And she decided that her and a friend of hers decided that they were going to challenge each other to see if they could go a week without eating meat. And after the week, my daughter realized that she could go forever without eating meat if it meant that she'd no longer be contributing to the cruelty of animals. And so she talked me and my other daughter into trying it too. And my other daughter got on board right away, but I was a little more stubborn, and it took me a while. Although at home I didn't eat any meat, I was then in another relationship. And so when I was with my now ex-boyfriend, I would eat meat. And I also rationalized that because of my surgery and because I had problems with absorption of B12 and iron, that I also needed some sources of that. So I continue to eat fish also. Being, of course, and we still ate dairy products. So fast forward to 2016, I was putting on more and more weight, even being vegetarian. So I was back up to about 265, I believe. And I saw I think within probably 2014 or 15 that we had seen the movie Forks Over Knives. And it had a pretty big impact on me. And I realized for the first time that dairy products were as bad, if not worse, for my health than meat. And I had convinced myself somehow that dairy animals and chickens raised for eggs were not treated as badly as the beef and pork and so forth. So that was kind of the turning point where I realized that it was time to ditch the dairy too, which was really hard for me because I was a cheese addict. I ate cheese every day, and it was probably my all-time favorite food besides chocolate. But I had to make a choice, not only for my health, but for the animals. And I realized that it was a choice. I didn't need these any animal products for my health. And it just wasn't worth it for me to continue consuming them while animals were suffering for it. And so I gave up dairy finally in September, I believe, 2016.
And so, how are you feeling now? I know you had a list of pretty significant ailments and things that, obviously would make, life difficult in different areas. Where are you at kind of with all of your, your physical things that you previously dealt with now?
Well, initially I had heard that dairy caused a lot of inflammation, and a lot of people were saying that, when they gave up the dairy, that a lot of their inflammation and pain disappeared. And I have to admit I was a little bit skeptical, but within a week, my arthritis pain had diminished significantly. And within, I'd say 3 months, it was gone. I mean, I was waking up every morning, just barely being able to walk. I was, every joint in my body, including my hands, was painful. I would toss and turn all night with pain in my hips. That was just gone. My digestive issues, gone. My psoriasis is probably 99% cleared up. I no longer need my sleeping medications. I'm off of my CPAP. My sleep apnea is gone. My energy level has just skyrocketed. And it's just, I say that's when the magic began. It's when I gave up the dairy and the eggs. That's when everything just started coming together for me. And the weight just started falling off. For the first time in my life, it felt effortless to lose weight. I was still enjoying wonderful food and not having to weigh or measure or count calories or points. And it was just wonderful, and it was just amazing.
You could almost say that you're a diet veteran in terms of, you have lots of experience in this arena. What about everything this time, with your arthritis, the way that you feel, all those things? What about it this time around and where you're at now has surprised you, or what did you think would have maybe just never been possible that today is just kind of normal life for you?
I really never ever thought that I would feel normal I had been overweight my entire life, obese my entire life. Even now, it feels strange to me that my thighs don't rub together. It's like I can't get used to that feeling. And actually, when I first felt a bone in my hip, I thought I had a tumor. Like I had never felt bones before, but now that I'm adjusting, I realize that this is my new lifestyle. This is not a diet that I'm going to go off of. This is my life now forever. I would never go back. It's just this is it.
And I know we didn't necessarily talk about it much before, but physically, I'm guessing you must have been fairly inactive previously at 400 pounds. What, from a physical standpoint, whether it's actual exercise or just what you're kind of able to do in your day-to-day life, how is it different now than it was before?
Well, like I said before, I hated any type of exercise. I was never good at any of it. And all the sports we played in school, I was always, picked last for the teams. There was just nothing physical that I was good at or enjoyed. And I do suffer from chronic pain due to some nerve damage. So I have, like, even now, I can't do a lot of strenuous physical activity, but after my cancer surgery, I had developed an infection in one of my incisions, and so I was kind of laid up for a few months. I was hooked to a wound vac and not able to do much. And during that couple of months sitting in my recliner, I really felt the urge to get outdoors. And so once I got healed up, I decided that I was going to start walking. And I remember my first walk, I barely made it around my block. Huffing and puffing and sweating, and but like I hear Tim Kaufman saying now, just do a little more than you did yesterday. That's actually what I did. I just kept pushing myself, and every day I'd go a little farther and a little farther until I now walk daily, approximately 4 miles a day, and I absolutely love it and I crave it, and I just enjoy it. I think a lot of it is just gratitude, just gratitude that I'm able to do that. So that's my morning routine, is to get out there with my dog and get our 4-hour walk in. Our 4-mile walk in.
That's great. If you could have a conversation with somebody who's at the beginning of this journey, who is maybe where you were when you were, at your biggest, had tried a ton of things and just felt like, the effort putting in is more than what you're getting out. What would you tell somebody at the beginning of this journey to give them some encouragement to them?
Well, I know that there are so many times where I just felt hopeless and just ready to give up entirely, thinking, I'm way too big. There's no way I'm ever going to lose this amount of weight. Why bother? But knowing what I do now, I know that's not impossible for anybody. And if you have the right tools and the right knowledge, you can do it. It's just, it wasn't that I failed all those years. It was that the diets failed me. It was the lies of the industry that I believed, thinking that, I needed such and such to be healthy. And now that I've found the truth and found that if I feed my body the right way, then my body will take care of itself and it'll respond appropriately. And so that's what I do now by eating a whole food plant-based diet. I no longer have to worry about the amounts or anything. I still have a few pounds to lose, but I'm losing it very slowly, and it seems too easy right now compared to all the diets that I've been on before that were just so difficult, and I just struggled to stay on them, and now it's just freedom. It seems easy.
That's great. And then, if you could go back in time and have a conversation with yourself at, pick an age, whether it was whenever you were at, 400 pounds or when you were an alcoholic or, whenever you were a kid in high school, what would you go back in time to tell yourself, to give yourself some words of encouragement or some, something that you think you maybe needed to hear back then?
I think I needed to hear that I was worth it, that that I was lovable, I was worth it, and just to keep on hoping.
And then lastly, where can people find out what you have going on and connect with you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. I think I'm Mary Chavarria Humphreys, or is it Mary Humphreys Chavarria? I get confused myself.
Okay, great. Well, I'll include a link to that. Mary, thanks for the time, for sharing your story, for being open and brave about sharing everything. And I look forward to keeping up with you. And congratulations again on everything.
Thank you, Jason.
All right. Well, have a great afternoon.
Thank you, you too.